Hello, I'm going to be reviewing Psycho 2, which came out in 1983. It's directed by Bernard Swartz and written by Tom Holland, who would later go on to direct the original Fright Night and Child's Play. And it's also the cinematography, or director of photography, I guess, is by Dean Cundey, who was the cinematographer on the original Halloween. The movie stars Anthony Perkins, Vera Miles, Meg Tilly, and Robert Loggia. I'm just gonna go by the year that was in the movie. So this movie takes place 22 years after the events of the original movie. I'm just, like I said, going by the year in the movie because this movie came out in 1983, but in the movie they kept saying 22 years later, and Psycho came out in 1960. So if if this movie came out in 1983, it would be 23 years later. But I'm guessing the movie was supposed to come out in 1982, so I'm just gonna go with that. And it's 22 years later after the events of the original movie, and not Psycho, and Norman Bates is released from a mental institution because they believe that he has been rehabilitated and he can live and work among society now. Uh, while this is going on, Lila Crane, who was sisters with Marion Crane in the first movie, she does not like this idea, and she is trying to get Norman back into the mental institution any way she can. And like I said, while this is going on, this whole interaction's going on, there is someone going around dressed up as Norman's mother, killing people. And that is basically the plot of Psycho 2. Now, like I said, this movie came out 22 years or 23 years after after the original movie. And in the 80s, this was the height of the slasher era. And so they do kind of up the kills and the gore in it to fit within that time period. And it's not like over the top stuff. I mean, there's not that many kills in it, like a Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street or Halloween. It's more pulled back, but there's still pretty good, decent kills in this. Um, One interesting fact I learned about this movie was that Meg Tilly and Anthony Perkins actually didn't get along on the set, but you can't tell in the film because they play off like they're friends in the movie. But in real life, Meg Tilly, I guess, never, from what I've read on IMDb, she never watched movies as a child, and she never saw the original Psycho. So she did not understand the importance of what the movie had on movie culture and pop culture and stuff, and why the movie was why Psycho 2 was so focused on Anthony Perkins. And Perkins overheard this, and he wanted her kicked off the set because he felt that she was being very disrespectful. Another interesting fact too was that they were supposed Jamie Lee Curtis was supposed to. They want to get Jamie Lee Curtis to play the Meg Tilly character in the movie because of Psycho, because of her mom was in Psycho. So um like I said, like the kills in this, they do up the kills in this, but it's not as gory or as excessive as most slasher films during this time period. Um, I think, well, one of them is this character named Mr. Toomey, who was running the hotel while Norman was locked up, and he's like a sleazeball, and he's been running the hotel for like sex parties and drug parties and stuff. And Norman finds out about this, and he wants him gone. He doesn't want him on the property anymore or running the hotel. So Mr. Toomey is like this douchebag that always like harasses Norman and calls him a psycho, and he's like, you know, you kill people and this and that, and he starts like harassing Meg Tilly's character, which pisses off Norman even more. And so while one night Mr. Toomey comes back to the hotel and he's screaming up at Norman. Norman's in his house and he's saying like, I'm gonna go get my stuff, you fucking loony, you psycho, and all that. And while he's packing his stuff, a woman dressed up as Norman's mother comes in and slashes him across the face and I think stabs him in the chest, and then like it cuts, and that's one death scene. Another one is with Lila Crane, which this is a major plot point in the movie. And I know a lot of people haven't seen it, but I guarantee a lot of horror fans have seen this movie already. But Lila, you find out why Lila Crane and her name is Lila Loomis in this. I'm sorry, I call her Lila Crane. You find out how Lila and Mary play into this whole scenario. You find out that Lila is trying to drive Norman crazy any way she can, and she brings her daughter into it to befriend him and stuff to help him drive him over the edge. You find out that Lila has been making phone calls to Norman and dressing up as his mother to freak him out and stuff. And Meg Tilly's character is like, I'm not doing this anymore. He's a good person. Why are you trying to get him to go back to his old ways? And she goes, and Lila's like, you know, he killed your aunt, and why won't you do this for your father and me? And, you know, Meg Tilly's like, I'm not doing this for dead people anymore. And so this pisses off Lila, and she breaks into Norman's house, and you find out that she actually's been dressing up like his mother because she has a dress and a knife and a wig under one of the floorboards, and while she's messing around trying to get her stuff out of the floor under the floorboards, a woman or someone dressed up as Norman's mother comes and stabs and kills her. And it's pretty cool. This is like one of the most memorable death scenes in this franchise. Is she turns around to look and she gets stabbed in the mouth and the knife goes through her mouth and comes out the back of her head. And it's just a very cool shot. It's not prolonged, it's like very quick, but it was really cool how they did it. Then it kind of reminded me of the death scene in The Prowler, but it's different. The guy gets stabbed through the top of the head and the knife comes out of his mouth. Also, there's another death scene where these two teens, this is more like a slasher kind of trope thing this is like the major slasher trope, I guess, that goes on in this movie. Two teens break into Norman's house to fool around, and they hear a noise, and they look out the door, and they see a woman walking around the basement. And the girlfriend was the only smart one in this situation because she manages to get out the window. And she's telling her boyfriend, she's like, come on, we need to go. And he's still dumbass, still keeps looking out the door. And he finally shuts the door and he's trying to leave. And while he's leaving, he's like kicking down a bunch of logs because there's like a stack of firewood in there. And she comes in and stabs them and stuff, but it's not graphic. And then later on, Norman's social worker, he's not really a social worker because early in the movie, he tells Norman that they wish they had money for social workers to come and check in on him. But he finds out what's really going on with Lila and Mary, and he's trying to warn Norman that he needs to stop being friends with Mary because, you know, her mother and her are trying to get him to go back to turn back insane. So he goes into the house, and this is when Norman's like going into full-fledged mother mode, not mother, but he's going insane. Like, he keeps thinking his mother is calling him and talking to him and stuff and leaving him notes. And, so he goes into the house and he finds Meg Tilly's character dressed up as, Norma Bates. And he goes, he kind of scares her and he goes, I knew it was you all along. And then she gets scared and she stabs him in the chest and then pushes him down the staircase. And you think it would be like kind of like the Arbogast kill, but it's not. He falls over a banister. It's kind of elaborate death. He falls over a banister, and then like he hits the second banister, and it pushes a knife through his chest, and then he falls and hits the floor and dies. And those are like the major death scenes in this movie. And yeah, I like this movie a lot. This is my second time seeing it. I've seen the sequels. I've seen the first movie multiple times. But the sequels I seen like about 3 or 4 years ago, and this is only my second time seeing it. And when I first watched the Psycho 2, I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed it this time around. I like that it's more of a drama, and they make Norman more sympathetic in this one. Well, he was kind of sympathetic in the original one, but in this one, because he's better now and he's trying to change his life and just live his life, but these people just won't let it go and they want him to turn crazy again. And all the people that interact with him are just like douchebags, like Mr. Toomey and stuff like that. And there's just like this one stupid bumbling cop who doesn't really care. Like, there's a scene where like Norman's social worker goes to talk to the sheriff and tell him that, Norman's been hearing voices. He thinks his mom's leaving him notes, and he's friends with this woman, and that he don't need to be friends with her and stuff. And the cop's like, "Oh yeah, I'll just go in and check up on him and see how he is," and he doesn't care, like, you know. And yeah, the humor in this is pretty good, like with the stupid bumbling cop, like what I was saying, like with the social worker was talking to him, he didn't really care. All he wanted to do was just eat a sandwich. And there's some cool shots in this. I think like my favorite one is when Norman thinks he sees his mother walking around the house when he's painting the hotel, and he runs up the staircase, the long staircase up to the house, and there's this cool shot where it like shoots downwards like from this, and you see Norman running up the staircase. There's also they also play with lights and shadows and stuff like that. Like when Mother's walking through the house, they silhouette her face out. And there's some other cool scenes where like the silhouette, like Meg Tilly's face out when she's talking to Norman, and then she steps out and then Norman's face black is silhouetted out. It's just a good movie, and it's not disrespectful to the original. I mean, yes, they do update some of the things in it for modern times because it's the 80s, and a lot of things wouldn't work for that time period. Like, they up the kills a little bit, they up the dumb ass characters in it, and yeah. And it just fits, it just feels like it fits into this universe, into the Psycho universe. Like the diner they mentioned in the first movie, they bring it up in here, and it's just a nice little cozy diner that Norman works at, and everyone, well, not everyone, but some people are nice to him and trying to understand him. The house, they explore more of the house, and I really like that aspect because you see how much this house is like, has an impact on Norman, and it's just like this, as an older house, it's like not like it needs to be demolished, but it kind of looks like dirty and decaying, like this looks kind of like a haunted house, and like there's cobwebs and dust everywhere. Yeah. Yeah, I thought that the interiors of the house looked really cool. Also, the hotel room, like the hotel looks cool and stuff like that. Like he starts painting it yellow in this one, but yeah, I just think Psycho 2 is a great movie. Like if you're, it's not like I said, a slasher fest, but if you like the original Psycho, this one is not that bad. It's a really good movie. It has more of a drama aspect, like I said, because these people are trying to turn Norman crazy, and you don't want him to. And I guess by the end of this movie, I guess he isn't crazy, or he is crazy, but they find out who did it, like who was doing it to him, and they put a stop to it. And I guess that kind of leads into the events of Psycho 3. So you're sitting there thinking like, wow, this bitch just fucked it up for everyone else because of her stupid actions. But anyways, that's my review of Psycho 2. Oh yeah, and I gotta mention this too. I forgot. Uh, this this franchise here and like The Exorcist, a lot of people don't know that there's sequels to these movies for some reason. Or like with The Exorcist, I think they know like about Exorcist 2, but anything after Exorcist 2 is like forgotten. I mean, not unless you're a horror fan, I guess. But when I was growing up and stuff, I never knew there was there were sequels to Psycho until like I was a teenager. I was like in the library reading books about. It was just books about movie reviews and stuff. And I think one was by Leonard Maltin, and I was reading ones about Psycho, and I found that they had a bunch. There was different sequel. There were sequels to this franchise or to this movie, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I mean, this movie has been out for 30 plus years, and not a lot of people know that it exists. But anyways, that's my review.